So let's move on to the fourth problem. So in the fourth problem, there are some additional calculations wherein some of the items like factory overheads, administrative overheads are not given directly, but they are linked to the other variables of the cost sheet. So let's understand how we are going to prepare this particular cost sheet for this particular problem. So for the purpose of saving the time, so I already created a template. So this is going to save time and we can spend the quality time on explanation part. So the problem goes like this. From the following information, prepare a cost sheet for the period ended 31st March 2006. So we are given the opening stock of raw material, purchase of raw material, closing stock of raw material. So by considering these three items, that is opening stock, add purchase and less closing stock of raw material, we will come to know what is the raw material consumed. So direct wages is given, direct expenses. So these two items are going to be forming a part of prime cost. Now factory overheads. So this factory overhead is given as 100% of direct wages. So the direct wages is 54,000. So 100% of 54,000, if you calculate, it is again same 54,000 itself. Office and administrative overhead is given as 20% of works cost. So once we add up the factory overheads and the prime cost, we get the works cost. So 20% of the works cost, if we calculate, we will get selling and distribution overhead. Then selling and distribution overhead is given. So cost of opening stock of finished goods and cost of closing stock of finished goods also given, plus profit on cost is 20%. So let's solve this problem. So the opening stock of raw material, so it is given as 12,500. I'll write it in the inner column. Then we are given purchase of raw material, that is 1,36,000. Closing stock of raw material is 8,500. So 8,500. So by adding the opening stock and purchases and deducting the closing stock, so we get 1,40,000, that is material consumed. The next item is direct wages, 54,000, that is 54,000. Then direct expenses 12,000. Okay, so by adding all these three items, we get the prime cost. Now next is about the factory overhead, and it is given as a 100% of direct wages. So I'll calculate 100% of direct wages, that is 1 into 54,000, it is same 54,000. Now prime cost and factory overhead together, we get 2,60,000, that is the factory cost. Now the next is about administrative overhead. Administrative overhead is given as 20% of works cost. So 20% of works cost we need to compute, that is 0.20 multiplied by works cost. Either you can call it as a works cost or factory cost, both are same. So by adding the factory cost and the administrative overhead, we get the cost of production. Now for the cost of production, we are supposed to add the opening stock of finished goods, that is 12,000, and then take the total 3,24,000. From this we deduct the finished goods, closing stock of finished goods 15,000. So the difference between 3,24,000 and 15,000, if we do, we get what is known as cost of goods sold. Now for this cost of goods sold, we need to add the selling and distribution overhead. So we are given selling and distribution overhead 26,000. So by adding the selling and distribution overhead, we get a cost of sales. And this is called as cost of sales, 3,35,000. For this we need to add 20% profit. So 67,000 is the profit, and then we get what is known as a sales. So in this way, sometime when you are not given the direct values for the factory overheads and the office administrative overhead, but they are going to be recovered as a percentage of the either works cost or percentage of wages. So accordingly, you need to go with this kind of a calculation. So this is about the fourth problem and the solution for the fourth problem. So next we move on to the fifth problem. So the fifth problem is slightly complex compared to the previous four problems that we discussed. So again, for this I have already developed a format, so that will be saving our time. What is the importance of this problem? If you understand, the following information is given to you for which you are required to prepare a cost sheet for the period ended 31st March. So consumable material is given, opening stock, purchase, closing stock, direct wages, direct expenses. Here also you are given a factory overhead is recoverable as 50% of direct wages. Office and administrative overhead is given as 20% of works cost. Selling and distribution expense is given as 3 rupees per unit sold. And the unit of finished goods details, it is given here. So the beginning opening stock of finished goods value is 12,500 and 500 units are still available. The unit produced during the period is 12,000 units in hand at the end of the period, which means the closing stock of finished goods at the end of the period is 1,500 units. But the value for this we need to ascertain. Find out the selling price per unit if 20% profit on selling price is given. There is no work in progress either at the beginning or at the end of the period. So up to this particular part, office and administrative overhead is similar to the previous problem, but from here onwards, when you given the adjustment like opening stock of finished goods and closing stock of finished goods, and also you are given the quantity for the opening stock and for the closing stock, and also how many units we have manufactured during the period is given, then here we need to be very careful in terms of a calculation part. So let's begin how we are going to solve this problem. So I'll write the opening stock of finished goods. So this is the format I have already prepared. So here we are going to mention the amount. The opening stock 20,000, purchases 1,22,000, closing stock 10,000. So all the material consumed will be $1,32,000. Next is direct wages 36,000. Then we have direct expenses 24,000. So adding all this, we get what is known as a prime cost. So if I divide this particular prime cost 1,92,000 by 12,000 units, we get 16 rupees. Next is the factory overhead. So this factory overhead is recovered as 50% of direct wages. So let's calculate 50% of direct wages, that is 36,000. It comes to 18,000. So adding these two, 2,10,000 is the factory cost. So this 2,10,000, let's divide by again 12,000. 17.5 is the cost per unit. Next, the administrative overheads. So the office administrative overhead is 20% of works cost. So 20% of 2,10,000 if we do, it comes to 42,000. Now if we add up these both, we get the cost of production. Now from here onwards we need to be slightly careful. Now when this is the cost of production, now if I take up the value that is for the cost of production when I add up the opening stock of finished goods 500 units, and the value of this 500 unit is given as 12,500, and take the total. So we get 2,64,500. Now this 2,64,500 I'll be dividing it by 12,500. Okay, so if I divide this by 12,500, I get 21.16. The reason why we are dividing it by 12,500 is, so for the 2,50,000 the cost of production, when you add the opening stock units, so 12,500 value is added, and this amount is going to be divided by now not just 12,000 but 500 units also gets added, which comes to 12,500. Now the closing stock of finished goods we are having is 1,500 units. Now these 1,500 units need to be valued. So this 1,500 units is multiplied with 21.16. So we get 31,740. So from 2,64,500 minus 31,740, so we get 2,32,760, and these 2,32,760 need to be now divided by the number of units sold, because now we are having 12,500 units manufactured, 500 units were the opening stock of finished goods, we get 12,500. So the closing stock of finished goods is 1,500. So finally 11,000 units are actually sold out. So if I divide this one, so again I get what is known as the cost per unit being 21.16. So I hope this calculation is understood to all of you. So the selling and distribution expense, so this selling and distribution expense is given as 3 per unit sold. So since already the cost per unit is given for us, I'll write 3 rupees. So this 3 rupees is going to be multiplied with number of units sold. So that is 12,000 units manufactured, 500 is the opening stock of finished goods, so 1,500 is the closing stock of finished goods. So if I deduct, so 11,000 units have been sold. So these 11,000 units is multiplied with 3, we get 33,000. So if I take the total of these both, we get 2,65,760, and the cost per unit comes to 24.16. Now we have been told like profit is 20% on selling price. So if I add 20% profit on the selling price, it is 4.83 is the profit per unit, and we get a selling price 28.99. Accordingly, so the profit figure will be 11,000 units multiplied by 4.83. So if I add up these two, we get 3,18,912. So this is a sales value. So in this way, we are supposed to prepare a cost sheet when you are given the factory overheads, office overheads are recorded as a percentage, plus when you are given the selling and distribution cost is already given the cost per unit, how much you are going to spend, and this selling and distribution expense is going to be recorded based on the number of units sold. And also when you are given the opening stock of finished goods, so how we are going to ascertain the cost per unit for not just the opening stock of finished goods but for the calculation of closing stock of finished goods. So in this way we prepare a cost sheet. Thank you.